Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of a Trip of a Lifetime podcast with me, Celeste.
And me, Jasmine.
And me, Loki.
Today we're talking about Boomtown, one of the most underrated episodes, not in just this season, but I think in New Who in general. It was released on the 4th of June 2005. It was directed by Joe Ahern and written by Rusty Davies. Now this episode is one of those, it's quite obviously a filler episode. It's a good filler episode, but not much happens. It actually does more to set up the next episode, to be honest, in some ways. But apparently they originally, I can't remember what the original reason why they had to quickly do this, because I think Russell had to write this in a week or something like that. Because Russell is so good. He's one of those writers that works well under pressure, mainly because he procrastinates so much, but which I can relate to. Not that bad, but I can relate to. And so he's very good at writing episodes off the cuff. Like Midnight is another one.
Really?
It was supposed to be something else. It was supposed to be a haunted. Like it was, those, those programs
like Most Haunted.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be something like that.
Oh, that would have been so good.
But I can't remember whether it was the actual story just didn't fit, like the tone wise. I think it just didn't work for what Russell wanted. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to series 4 in quite a while. Yes.
I would like to add something relevant to Midnight, but not at the same time.
Okay.
I've just realised that most of the Merlin cast are in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Well, not all of them. But
Well,
some
yeah,
of
you've
them.
got the guy who plays Luther in the Umbrella Academy. He played one of the knights.
The guy with the laptop.
Yeah, the guy.
Yeah.
In series 5, episode 1,
just-
11th
yeah.
hour.
Gosh, clean your search.
Jeff!
Yeah, it's so great.
Oh, and then you've also got Uther.
Yeah,
in
Anthony Head. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
obviously you've got the guy who plays Merlin
Yeah.
in Midnight. Sorry.
And
Yeah,
then, of course,
Bradley
Andrew
James is the only one who hasn't showed up yet. Anyway.
Or Morgana. Or
Oh yeah,
got-
I can't remember her name. Katie something. She's so hot. Anyway, she's so hot.
Or Gwen. Haven't
Oh,
got Gwen
yeah.
either.
That's true.
Or Lancelot, but then we're not going to count.
Right, so
Lancelot.
you've met, and then Dr. Constantine. He's Merlin's mentor. So that's
Oh,
four.
that's who I
four.
meant to say when I said Uther.
Okay.
Sorry, I just completely forgot
Yeah,
his
and-
name.
yeah.
Gaieth. Gaieth.
I don't know.
something
It's
like
been
that.
so long since I watched Merlin when it was on as a kid, so I can barely remember it.
I have
But-
not watched Merlin.
I love Merlin.
It's supposed to be a pretty good one. I mean, there's possible queer baiting between the two leads, but it's not like Sherlock, where they're like joking about them being together. It's just people just shipped them, and then they didn't get together for obvious reasons. Anyway, back to what we're actually supposed to be talking about. So yeah, Russell churned this episode out ridiculously quickly. So obviously it's a character study. That's its purpose, and I think it's a very good one. I think it's a better character study than A Town Called Mercy, in my opinion. Mainly because I guess we've seen Margaret, aka Blonde Felfotch, past Midday Slovene in I'm just showing off now. We've seen her in in 2 previous episodes. We kind of already know what she's like as a character, whereas the gunslinger is literally just kind of there. And then he's gone, there's not much to him, I guess. So, it's obviously she's comparing herself to the Doctor and how, she was brought up this way. She had almost no say in the matter as a child.
It feels very much like the Slovene have a case of generational trauma.
Yes, just a very extreme version. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the times if you think of character studies with the Doctor, you tend to think of people like the Master or possibly Shilda, or hell, even the companions bring that side out of him.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's Margaret, and she doesn't. I don't know. She's constantly trying to wear him down. I guess it's very much a battle of wills.
Like I both love and hate the Slovene, but this
Yeah.
episode kind of made me a bit more fond towards them.
Yeah, because this shows the potential of how you can use them. Because not only are they, again, it's because there's barely any fart jokes in this. That's the
Yeah.
difference, which is great. And the ones that are used, they're used kind of tastefully, I guess,
It's just
compared to
kind of,
last time.
Oh, I have a bit of a stomachache.
Exactly. But I think that I've just forgotten what I was going to say. Oh yeah, because of the lack of the fart jokes and the fact that it shows that the Slovene, they have brains. I mean, it was kind of obvious in Aliens in London World War III because they wouldn't have come up with this massive plot otherwise. But they do think, and they are menacing in the sense that they have the brains, but they're also 8 feet tall with massive claws and incredibly accurate senses that can smell you from about a mile away.
Yeah.
And then you add in the technology as well. I mean, we discussed this last time, but I mentioned that if you have a slasher style episode with one Slovene trying to hunt down a ton of people that are trapped in one location, that would be really scary.
Yes.
Like,
I agree.
we were talking about this, and it's like why Dalek is an episode and why Resolution was scary, because you had one Dalek there. Or like essentially, no, not essentially. I can't remember what it's called. It's the one before essentially the Cyberman. The Secrets of Villa Duardati. With Lord Byron and that one Cyberman,
Yes.
Ashed. That was creepy because there was only one of him. Again, it's having one single monster is creepier. Even Blink, like, sure, there's about 5 of them. But it's not as if there's a massive army of Weeping Angels like there are in, say, Flesh and Stone. Like, it's creepier when you have less characters. Again, last episode, one empty child. Sure, there's a lot of some other ones popping up later on, but for the most part, it's just Jamie,
It's very... in the cases like this, it is definitely less is more.
Yes, definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong, big... world-ending epics are great for finales.
Yeah, definitely finales.
But, after a while, there's only so far you can build up. Eventually, you need to take it back down again, because that's how you stop things like the Daleks from becoming jokes. Yeah. Because throughout the Moffat era, because he was throwing so many massive hordes of Daleks at the Doctor, that people kind of got bored.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, those, the Power Ranger Daleks and Victory of the Daleks, as their nickname, because the bright colourful ones, they were massive joke. They were supposed to be the massive redesign, but actually they've only they just went back and used Russell's ones.
Because as well with like Sarah Jane Adventures, there were quite a few like just singular monsters, and they were terrifying.
There was like Nightmare, or that Nightmare guy who trapped everyone in their dreams, and
Trickster as well.
Yeah, oh my god, the Trickster. Actually, Russell has actually said that that is one of the characters, like prior to him returning, that was one of the characters that he'd wished he'd put in Doctor Who, because the Trickster is actually referenced in Doctor Who, and he's referenced in Torchwood as well. But he's never actually shown. I missed the Torchwood reference. I think it's in Miracle Day or something like that.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. I haven't watched it in ages. Which one's Miracle Day?
It's the 4th season of Torchwood.
Oh
the
yeah,
last
I didn't
one.
watch that one.
I haven't watched it.
But like as well, there's I'm gonna butcher the name. The
Vashtinarada.
Yeah, because it starts off as a singular one.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. And it's just like a disease that spreads. And it's so scary to think about. Like, that's after that episode, because I watched it so young, I was constantly counting my shadows.
That's yet another Moffat episode, proving just how good he is at horror writing. Yeah, exactly. And that is a monster that I don't want to see again, because I think it was done once, it was done well.
Yeah.
I think you should leave it like that, because a lot of people have argued that the Weeping Angels being used after Blink ruined them in a lot of ways. I mean, I think a lot of people did quite like the way they were used in the latest episode with them. Something of the Angels, was it?
Time?
Was it the
New Year's?
No, not New Year's. That was Daleks. It was during Flux. It was like Flux Chapter 4 or something like that. It was something like Village of the Angels or something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't remember.
I think
the
it
name
was
of
called Village of the Angels,
it
possibly.
Might have been. But as well, with the silence, I feel like if you had like a singular silence in just like a building that you can't get out of and it's just following you, that would be terrifying.
Well, that was kind of used in the earlier part of that two-parter at the start of Series 6, Possible Astronaut, Day of the Moon. Yeah.
You mean in the orphanage, or is that in a different part?
No, I meant like in the bathroom where Amy goes to the bathroom right at the start and things like that. Anyway, we're getting really off track here. But I guess one of my favourite bits of this episode is where Mickey just kind of, you see him getting off the train in Cardiff, and that's one of the things people have mentioned on, is the fact that the TARDIS circuits don't translate, like, the monuments and stuff, like the big Millennium Centre in Cardiff, they don't translate the Welsh, which I find funny. It'd be hilarious if they put in a joke later on in this show if the TARDIS circuits for some reason just don't translate Welsh. Like, just that language. None of the others. They're just Welsh. That'd be quite funny.
Gotta love Wales.
Well, I mean, of course it was filmed in Wales, so they were using it on location. Yeah. So, anyway, but, I mean, Mickey on the train station is forgivable because Mickey hasn't been in the TARDIS properly.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be affected by the translation circuits anyway. So he goes to the TARDIS, he opens the door, has this thing, he pushes past Jack, who he's kind of annoyed about already, and then you have that bit where he's kind of obviously trying to, get Rose's attention and everything, and then in the background you've just got the Doctor and Jack just flirting the entire time, and I love that.
Hey, it's like, buy me a drink first. go buy him a drink right now.
Literally, I don't understand why people think the Doctor is straight, honestly. I mean, that's been proved now with Yaz, obviously, since then, but, at the time.
Oh, and kind of subtly, Rory.
Well, I mean, he kisses him once.
Like, he's comfortable with kissing Rory. So
yeah, but I think that was a very platonic kiss. Whereas with Jack, that's not... I don't think that's platonic.
Yeah.
The way that they're
Nothing's platonic with Jack.
Literally. Well, other than the one time that he kisses Martha, that was platonic. But everything else, no.
You also have Mickey's, it's not a pickup line, but it's like a compliment where he says, "You look fantastic."
Yeah, I missed that, but yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I really did like Mickey in this episode. I know you, Loki, have got a differing opinion.
I felt slightly bad for Mickey.
Yeah, I do, but I also don't, because up until the point where he talks about Trisha Delaney, I felt bad. But at that point, he is dating Trisha, right? He's going out with her. Then he can't be running after Rose. He can't have both. And at this point, I think both Mickey and Rose are in denial. Rose is still in denial about the fact that she wants the Doctor. She knows she's attracted to him, but I don't think she's still in denial about being in love with him at this point. And is still kind of clinging on to Mickey as that one, other than her mother, is that one point that's keeping her on Earth.
The constant.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Exactly. It's almost kind of, if the Doctor ends up leaving me behind, I've still got something to fall back on. And then you've also got Mickey, who's in denial about the fact that Rose is no longer in love with him.
Yeah.
Because he's still clinging on to it, even though he's got Trisha, even though that he knows deep down that Rose is no longer interested. Because let's be honest, it's not Rose that's going to be the one to break up, because she's selfish. She wants, but I mean, so is he. They're both selfish. That's why they don't work.
Yeah. Whereas
the Doctor, as much as he wants to be selfish, they normally realise that they can't be. It's very rare that they give in to those selfish impulses. And actually, those are some of the best episodes when they do give in to those darker impulses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mickey was... I guess he is the one that ends up walking away in the end, in season 2. He suddenly realises that it's him that needs to get out.
I do like those four as a quadria.
Yeah, like a
Cause
quartet.
Yeah,
maybe.
quartet.
Yeah.
Because it's just so chaotic.
There's so much banter. And it works. I mean, obviously Mickey does feel a bit like the odd one out at times, but even in the cafe, you've got that scene where the four of them are just sitting there laughing, eating chips.
Yeah.
It's just so nice, and it's what I wish the fam would have been like. I mentioned this last episode, but I wish that we'd been given that dynamic with Yaz, Graham and Ryan and the Doctor, because we just didn't get that joy. We didn't get them sitting down and just having fun.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame.
I do feel like that would have made that series a lot better if there was a lot more, I guess, dynamic domestic moments.
Yeah, because I've heard this before, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on this podcast yet or not, but some people have suggested that what they should have done is after Grace died, what they should have done is the Doctor should have taken Graham and Ryan with her, not Yaz. And Yaz should have been a recurring character throughout the series. And then after Resolution, Ryan should have left, and Graham and Yaz should have gone with the Doctor, and then Graham should have left after, when he did leave, basically.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, Ryan doesn't have anything to do once he's finally accepted Graham as his grandfather, and and then you've got that bit with his dad. But then after that, there's not really anything to build on his character, because Graham's still got his cancer, his fear that it will come back.
Yeah.
And I wish that had been built on a bit more, because it kind of was brushed off a couple of times it got brought up.
I do feel like Ryan could have been a lot better character if they just gave him that bit more.
Yeah, because Tosin Cole's supposed to be a great actor, but unfortunately, because of the material he was given, I don't see that. You know what I mean? Hell, even Mandip almost had to wait 2 seasons to finally be able to shine. You know what I mean? Like, it's just such a shame. Anyway, back to this episode. We keep getting off track with this one. Like, we're 18 minutes in, we've barely discussed anything.
I liked how you could kind of, because as horrific as like a lot of the species are and monsters are in Doctor Who, there's always that kind of sweetness when one of them kind of shows that there is morality, like when Margaret's talking to the journalist and she starts talking about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get married, I'm pregnant, and she just kind of sits there in the bathroom like, oh, I don't want to kill her anymore.
And is reminiscing about her own family.
Yeah,
I mean, even linking back to Dalek and how they made a Dalek feel sympathisable, because that Dalek, I mean, sure, it starts feeling empathy because of Rose and ends up kind of no longer being a proper Dalek. And I guess it's building on that theme of anyone can change. You see it later on with Missy.
I definitely liked Margaret this episode, especially when the Doctor goes to see her.
Yeah.
And he's just like, she's climbing out the window, isn't she?
I love that bit so much.
Just like runs straight for her.
I think I actually read a Torchwood novel that had that receptionist in it. And apparently he used to date Jack briefly, once.
Of course.
Or something like that. Prior to him meeting Yanto, that kind of thing.
And then as well, just that she's running away, she gets teleported. She's running away,
it's
she
great.
gets teleported.
That scene's one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Funny.
Russell's so good with comedy, because he's had a lot of criticism by some people that he kind of does drama with comedy, you can't have one without the other, but I don't think you can. I mean, certain times, obviously there's time and a place, but, but he does recognise that, there are obviously times when, Blonde's talking about the death penalty, and that's very serious. Whereas, there's the bit in the restaurant, which is one of my favourite scenes in Doctor Who. I mean, not only is there tons of character study in that, you've got Lon talking about how the Doctor always runs away, which is a theme that comes up again and again from, the likes of River, Ishilda, the Master. They're constantly going on about, hell, even Jack, when he's appeared in the latest time he's appeared back in Revolution of the Daleks. Revolution. With Yaz, he's talking about how the Doctor will move on eventually.
Yeah.
It's a constant theme. The Doctor doesn't look back ever because he doesn't like consequences. And interestingly enough, that's going to be a thing that he's going to have to deal with next episode, because he's going to have to deal with the consequences of his actions in the long game. Which is a bit of a spoiler, but
building upon that, you also have some of the things that Blonde has been saying to the Doctor when they're together. So you have, like, for example, only a killer would know that, and playing with so many people's lives, you might as well be a god, which kind of references the Doctor and the Time War. Obviously, she might not have known about that, but it has a deeper meaning.
But it's also adding on to earlier in the episode when he's talking about how he shouldn't be worshipped and things like that. Like, the Doctor, at least 9, is self-aware of the fact that he's not a good person, whereas 10 is the exact opposite. He's very self-righteous, I'm the best.
Yeah.
And that is I think is the core difference, because they're both very angry incarnations. They're both very kind of forlorn. But that's the difference, is one knows that he's not always right and that gets things wrong. Hell, he even calls himself stupid in the long game. Like, he's like, look at me, I'm stupid. Like, he's very self-depreciating. I mean, hell, even Christopher Eccleston as a person is very self-depreciating. Whereas Tennant, as his Doctor, so self-righteous.
Yeah.
Then you've got, the massive... Actually, no, before we get to that...
I do like that date scene, because it's pretty much Doctor with Margaret, Rose with Mickey, Jack with technology.
Yeah, it's... But I don't think Jack minds, though, because he's genuinely invested in what he's doing. And, I mean, the Doctor's kind of lumped with Margaret. He's not wanting to be there, and then... Okay, he's just doing it because it's the decent thing to do. And then, hell, even Rose and Mickey, they're not exactly enjoying themselves. Like, I think Jack's got the best deal out of that, to be honest. But at the start of the episode, we've got the first mention of the chameleon circuit and why the TARDIS is stuck as a police box, because that wouldn't have necessarily been common knowledge to new viewers watching the revived series. And then, of course, we've got the biggest bad wolf mention so far,
which is what
Blyg Drew.
Yeah,
I've butchered that pronunciation. I apologise. I do not speak Welsh.
And then it literally translates to bad wolf.
Yes, because, well, spoilers for next episode. I'm not going to go into it. Yeah. Then I think, thinking about the Slitheen CGI, I mean, you don't see it very much because she's not really... Because this is a low-budget episode, it's supposed to be. That's why it's set in Cardiff, because that's where they were filming. They could get there and block things off pretty easily instead of, filming in the height of London. But
I thought it was primarily a puppet that you used for the Slitheen.
No, they used proper prosthetics for the actual costume, and then when Slitheen would run, they would use CGI for that because they couldn't because the actors couldn't move in the suits. Because at least in the Doctor Who, when they did it in Sarah Jane Adventures, they managed to create Slitheen suits that you could run in. Which is why it looks more authentic in the Sarah Jane Adventures. Not that I've watched those episodes for a long time. But, I thought the Slitheen CGI was a lot better. Like, when she was coming out of the suit in the bathroom, I thought that worked better than the same kind of effect in Aliens London World War 3.
Yeah.
I wasn't as keen on the Earth splitting graphics. I thought they were okay for the time. But then there was also the light and electricity, and I really love whenever Doctor Who, like in this season specifically, I love whenever so far that they do light or electricity effects.
Because they were practical.
Yeah.
But I think I thought the actual cracking of the Earth was not that bad. Really.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, you couldn't really do much else.
Yeah.
Honestly, because it wasn't as if, you know, they were getting to the point where the whole planet was going to explode.
I love the like space surfboard bit. Where it's
Yeah.
Like, oh, so it's a surfboard. Like, yes.
This is a polydimensional surfboard.
I also like Jack out-doctoring the Doctor with his plan at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor being like, hang on, and then be like, no, that's actually a really good plan.
Yeah, it's just the Doctor wants to assert dominance. That's all. Because I swear, like, as soon as the Doctor puts a stern voice on, he's like, yes, sir.
And then you have... Sorry. And then you have the fact that he actually knows about the technology.
Yeah.
Whereas other companions don't. And it kind of sets him apart a little bit.
It's really nice to have that, because so often, even if the companion is whip smart, like Rose, like Martha, like Donna, in their own way, in different ways, like obviously Rose is more street smarts, whereas Martha, you know, she's very
medically.
Yeah, intellectual.
Yeah.
And then Donna's kind of somewhere in between the two.
Yeah.
But they're all working class. But when it comes to Jack, obviously, it is very refreshing to see someone who can keep up with that. Because we don't see that again. I don't know, I guess River. But like main time companion, maybe Clara, I guess, because she picks up a lot of this kind of stuff.
She kind of learnt quite quickly.
And I mean, Clara, unlike previous companions, she wants to be the Doctor.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't just idolise the Doctor and put him on the pedestal, she wants to be the Doctor. Yeah, anyway.
I just love how prepared the Doctor is, especially during the date scene, where it's like, yeah, well, did you know I could do this? And it's like, yes, I know you could do that. It's like, oh, did you know about the breath?
That's what makes it so funny, though, because he's so prepared.
It feels quite refreshing after the sort of very intense episodes.
Yeah, I mean, this episode, it has its own emotional weight. There's a lot of moments where you're like, oh, okay. Like the death penalty, like the bit where Margaret's comparing the Doctor to herself.
It's very much, it gets you thinking about morality.
Yeah. Yeah, again, and like, to the people that say Russell's writing wasn't political, he's literally talking about the death penalty.
Yeah.
Like, literally. Yeah, so I guess maybe that, because we're starting to run out of things to say, that kind of brings us on to the foreshadowing for next episode. Because yes, you've got the Bad Wolf, but you've also got the Heart of the TARDIS, which Rose ends up using next episode.
I like how at the end she just kind of got turned into an egg.
I know.
The egg looked very potato-like with
It
worms
did.
coming out.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see it was probably paper mache, but like...
absolutely.
Yeah. Is that everything?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so what would you guys rate this episode?
I think I rated it a 7.
I rated it a 6, but I usually rate quite low.
Yeah, you do. I rated an 8.5. I was almost going to put a 9. I was like, no, I'm not going to, even though I do love it. Like, I don't think there's anything bad about this episode, honestly. Actually, no, I can't think of anything I dislike.
The only thing I don't dislike, but this is personal preference, is the lack of events. Like, there are things going on, but there isn't as much.
I quite like that, though, because it works in the sense that you're able to get to know the characters better.
It's nice to occasionally have those episodes where it's, like, something small-ish happens.
Yeah. Like, not much happens.
Yeah, where it feels like, seeing as how the world still almost ended, it felt very domestic.
Yeah, and I liked that because it felt more intimate, felt more small scale, and you need episodes like that. Sure, it's a filler episode, but it's one that adds things to the characters and adds depth. And I really like it because not many writers could pull off this kind of setting, because they could either make it so that the character study doesn't quite hit right, and therefore the lack of plot means that the episode is then unenjoyable, whereas I don't think this episode was unenjoyable. Sure, was it slow? Did not many things happen? No. But it worked for the benefit of the episode, I think. I think that's all we've got time for today, but we'll hope to see you next time when we talk about Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, the final 2 episodes of season 1 of Doctor Who.